A very good morning to each and everyone there. I welcome you all to this new session of Nerdy Scientists, the new video. Today we are going to discuss about the most important concept of the various principles and applications which are actually involved in flow cytometry, which is actually very important concept and instrumentation to be discussed in cancer research. And now we are going to discuss in depth about how this flow cytometry is very much essential in analyzing the DNA and how is it actually working and how it got originated, what are the different applications which are actually very much beneficial to be useful under cancer research and in various other sectors of medical science. So let's start off with the first slide. So initially, what is flow cytometry? So flow cytometry is the name, it's actually suggesting that it's a technique for cell counting and measurement of different properties of cells. Could be various properties, and there are various properties which are actually involved in determination when it comes to flow cytometry, and it's majorly used for cell counting. So it is a laser based technology that measures and analyzes different physical and chemical properties of the cells or particles flowing in a stream of fluid through a beam of light. There is a beam of light acting, and there is completely the cells are actually flowing in a stream of fluid through this beam of light due to scattering. It could be side scattering or front wave scattering. There are two types in it, and here we are actually analyzing different physical and chemical properties due to the flow of these cell particles in a stream of fluid. So this is how actually a standard flow cytometer looks. There is a computer, that is the machine there, and through that we actually keep the samples and analyze how the cells are flowing, and through that flotation, through that scattering from this beam of light, we actually analyze various physical and chemical properties of the cell. So now coming to the historical perspective, how this flow cytometry got originated. In 17th century, there was a development of a light microscope by Leeuwenhoek. We know this. In 1879, there were various principles of droplet formation by Lord Rayleigh. And then 1934, counting of RBCs by Moldovan by forcing a suspension of cells through a capillary tube. These are all connected, guys. These are all connected, which led to flow cytometry. And in 1947 to 1949, the 3 years, there was development of Coulter principle and Wallace, Courier, and counting of RBCs using the first Coulter counter method. So then in 1953, there was optical counting of RBCs by Crossland Taylor by use of laminar flow principles. And then in 1965, there was application of Sweet's principles and Coulter principles to develop the first cell sorter by M. Fulvier. And then in 1965 again, there is development of electrostatic inkjet droplet deflection by Richard Sweet. In 1968, there was development of fluorescence based cell sorter by Wolfgang Godet. From 1970 onwards, there was development of FACS and other advancements, and this FACS was nothing but the evolution of flow cytometry. So you could see how from the light microscope to FACS, there's a lot of developments happening in the science, and this all were all connected to actually leading to one of the finest instrumentation to be developed, that is flow cytometry. Just see, every discovery which happened during this timeline is very much important and essential, which led to the design and development of flow cytometer. So now, talking about various principles, these are all the principles which actually involved. The Coulter principle, we all know this, the principle of laminar flow, the electrostatics, the optics and light scattering. These are all various kind of principles which are actually involved in flow cytometry. Without any of these, we cannot expect the flow cytometry to work. So all these principles collectively help in producing an effective action of determining the physical properties or counting the cells, or the DNA analysis what the flow cytometry can do. So they are all principles which are actually very much important and essential to understand how this flow cytometer works. So now talking about the composition, what are the components of flow cytometer? So a flow cytometer is made up of three main systems: fluidics, optics and electronics. So talking about the fluidics, this system is actually used in transporting particles in a stream to the laser beam for interrogation. This fluidic system is definitely used only for interrogation purposes. It transports particles in a stream to the laser beam for interrogation. The optic system, in the other hand, it consists of lasers to illuminate the particles in the sample stream and optical filters to direct the resulting light signals to the appropriate detectors. So, this is actually consisting of various kind of lasers which actually help in illumination of the particles in the sample stream. You can detect the particles in the sample stream using the optic system because it consists of various lasers, and then these optical filters direct the resulting light signals to the appropriate detectors. So appropriate detectors are actually present somewhere else, and this optical system is helping to divert this light signals to the appropriate detectors to detect which kind of cell it is and what kind of particle which is actually being illuminated. So now talking about the electronic system, the third part. So this system converts the detected light signals into electronic signals. So the conversion of light signals, normal light signals, to electronic signals that can be processed by the computer. So for some instruments equipped with sorting feature, the electronic system is also capable of initiating sorting decisions to charge and deflect particles. So you can actually charge and use particles to deflect. So particles can be deflected and they can also be charged using this system. So all this is related to it's all completely based upon the conversion of the normal light to electronic signals so that the computer can analyze the data and give out the accurate results. So it's very much important that this function, all the three systems work in a coordinate fashion, so that it's very much important that it actually collectively all these systems, if they work, then only we can find an accurate results. If one of the system stops abruptly, then there is no accurate results coming up for you. So it's very much important that all these three are completely working when you are actually using flow cytometer. Now coming to the working, how this flow cytometer actually works. In the flow cytometer, particles are carried to the laser intercept in fluid stream. Initially, the particle is carried into a laser intercept in a fluid stream. Any suspended particles or cell from 0.2 to 150 micrometers in size is suitable for analysis. The portion of fluid stream where particles are located is called the sample core. The sample core is the place where the portion of fluid stream is actually located, where the particles are located. And when particles pass through the laser intercept, they scatter laser light. I talked about the laser scattering initially, the side scattering and the front level scattering, and this is all about that. When particles pass through the laser intercept, they scatter laser light. Any fluorescent molecules present on the particle fluoresce. So the scattered and the fluorescent light is collected by the appropriate positioned lenses, and a combination of beam splitters and filters actually steers, diverts or directs the scattered and the function of the fluorescent light to the appropriate detectors, and then the detectors produce electronic signals proportional to the optical signals striking them. So this is how systematically the flow cytometer initially suspends into the stream, the fluid stream, using the laser intercept, and there's a portion of fluid stream where the particles are located in the sample core, and the particles pass through this laser intercept. They scatter the laser light, and any fluorescent molecules present on the particle actually fluoresce, and the scattered and fluorescent light is collected appropriately by the positioned laser lenses, and then the combination of beam splitters and filters actually directs the scattered and fluorescent light to the appropriate detectors, and detectors produce electronic signals proportional to the optical signals striking them and give us the accurate results using the computer systems. So These are all completely systematic. If one of the kind of thing, one of the kind of part, or for example, sample core doesn't function, or it could be the laser light, but it's not dysfunctional, then you cannot find appropriate results. So it's very much important that all these parts actually work really very well, and the working is so systematic that there is completely accurate results for any kind of analysis. It could be DNA analysis, it could be any kind of cancer cell analysis. This is actually used commonly for the lymphomas, to detect the cancer cells of lymphomas. So it's very highly expensive and commonly used system or the instrument for important, guys, that you understand this for working and the composition of flow cytometer, because when you get into the further studies, it could be masters, it could be PhD, you will be actually working with flow cytometer if you're interested in cancer studies. So what are the applications of flow cytometry? Flow cytometry is the sine qua non. It is actually a Latin word which means without which nothing of the modern researcher's toolbox. So without this flow cytometry, you cannot do anything in research, in cancer research for most importantly. So flow cytometry measures multiple characteristics of individual particles flowing in single file in a stream of fluid. Light scattering at different angles can distinguish differences in size and internal complexity. There is a lot of complexation when you actually talk about any kind of cell, whereas light emitted from fluorescently labeled antibodies can identify a wide array of cell surface and cytoplasmic antigens. Now, he is talking about two things here. Light scattering at different angles can actually cause variations in size, internal complexity, whereas light emitted from fluorescently labeled antibodies can identify a wide array of cell surface and cytoplasmic antigens. So you could see the difference between the fluorescently labeled antibodies and the light scattered particles. So both are completely different. Light scattering, something related to the laser lights, and the fluorescence is something which is very much accurate at this point of time, because it actually identifies a wide array of cell surface and cytoplasmic antigens without any variations in size and the complexity. So this approach makes flow cytometry a very powerful tool for detailed analysis of complex populations in a very short duration of time. So flow cytometry is very important, as it is saying, without which nothing. So you cannot do anything without the use of flow cytometry in cancer research, and that's how important this instrumentation is. Now talking about the various applications, you could see the first one is immunophenotyping. It actually deals with the cell subsets, and they are actually measured by labeling population specific proteins with a fluorescent tag on the cell surface. In clinical labs, it's majorly used in immunophenotyping, which is actually very useful in diagnosing hematological malignancies such as lymphomas and leukemias. And in cell sorting, of course, the cell sorter is a specialized flow cytometer with the ability to physically isolate cells of interest into separate collection tubes. It could actually sort and separate cells according to its size, or its physical properties, or any other kind of analysis what we could do. The sorter uses sophisticated electronics and fluidics to identify and kick the cells, and actually this kicking the cells of interest out of the fluidic stream into a test tube. And then talking about DNA content analysis, the measurement of cellular DNA content by flow cytometry uses the fluorescent dyes. Very important, guys. The DNA content analysis is very much important, and it's actually commonly used in this analysis of flow cytometry. And this measurement of cellular DNA content by flow cytometry uses fluorescent dyes such as propium iodide, and that intercalate into the DNA helical structure. The fluorescent signal is directly proportional to the amount of DNA in the nucleus and can identify the gross grains and the losses in the DNA. So, talking about the DNA content analysis, you could actually see how this is actually proportional to the amount of DNA in the nucleus, and can identify the gross gains or losses in the DNA. So the cell cycle analysis, how the cell cycle analysis actually works. Now we have discussed about DNA content analysis, cell sorting, and the immunophenotyping techniques. So cell cycle analysis is something related to flow cytometry, and it can analyze reaction states, fluorescent dyes to measure the 4 distinct phases of cell cycle. Along with determining cell cycle replication states, the assay can measure cell aneuploidy associated with the chromosomal abnormalities. You could see there are various abnormalities which are being caused and various kind of errors which are being related to cell cycle, and we can actually very clearly detect in the cell cycle using the flow cytometry which is actually causing the problem. So cell cycle analysis actually helps us to analyze replication states using fluorescent dyes to measure the 4 distinct phases of cell cycle, along with determining the cell cycle replication states, along with the assay which can actually measure the aneuploidy. As I said, I'm repeating it 2-3 times because you could actually understand how important this is and how crucial it is. So the assay can measure cell aneuploidy, which is actually related to the chromosomal abnormalities. So cell cycle analysis also is very crucial, and in various stages of cell cycle you can see the G1 phase, S phase, M phase, the various phases. So we don't know at what point you could actually find this kind of abnormalities. So this flow cytometry can actually analyze and detect where this abnormality is occurring, and it can also analyze the replication states using this fluorescent dyes, as it says. And then coming to the cell death, apoptosis. The 2 distinct types of cell death, apoptosis and necrosis, can be distinguished by flow cytometry on the basis of differences in morphological, biochemical and molecular changes occurring in the dying cells. So you could see the various morphological, biochemical and molecular changes which are actually leading to death of cells, and this flow cytometry can actually help us in differentiating between apoptosis and necrosis. It's very important. And cell proliferation assays, another very important application of flow cytometry. The flow cytometer can measure proliferation by labeling resting cells with cell membrane fluorescent dye carboxyfluorescent succinyl ester, CFSE is commonly known as. So when the cells are activated, they begin to proliferate and undergo mitosis. As the cells divide, half of the original dye is passed on to each daughter cell. And by measuring the reduction of the fluorescence signal, researchers can calculate cellular activation and proliferation. So this is a very important application again, how the cell multiplies. You could actually understand and we could actually observe how this mitosis is occurring using the cell proliferation assay. So you could see these 6 are very important applications in the cytometer, the flow cytometer technique. So it's important for us to understand and analyze all this kind of functions and applications are very crucial in cancer research, when actually you're working with DNA, with tumor cells, and how the tumor cells are actually dividing inside our body. So all this DNA analysis, the cell separation, normal cells, tumor cells, how can we differentiate it, apoptosis, how the cell death is occurring in normal cells, how the cell death is occurring in tumor cells, actually analyze it, or the immunophenotyping, very crucial technique and very important process to be analyzed in cancer research. So all these things are very important. That is the reason why flow cytometry has its own place in cancer research, and it's very important to analyze all these things and to understand all these things initially before you start off with your career in research. So we discussed about FACS. Now we will actually explain it, how this fluorescence activated cell sorting is working. So consider a group of lymphocytes from a mouse that have been stained with green fluorescent antibodies. Let's take an example where you're considering a group of lymphocytes from a mouse that has been stained with green fluorescent antibodies, which are actually specific to CD4 cells. Example, fluorescent isothiocyanate, which is actually FITC anti CD4. So, and we're also considering red fluorescent antibodies specific for CD8. In that, you would actually take an example of phiocoerythrin or PE anti CD8, which is actually commonly known as. So both the labeled cells generate SSC and FSC, the side scattering of cell or the fluorescence scattering cell. So as they pass through the laser beam, creating voltage pulses that are recorded by the computer. However, each labeled cell will also emit light of specific wavelength. There will be a specific wavelength as a result of the fluorescent label present in it. For instance, CD4 cells will emit green fluorescent light of wavelength, which is around 525 to around 530 nanometers, while CD8 cells actually emit orange light of wavelength, which is actually around 560 nanometers to 565 nanometers. So these fluorescent signals pass through the photomultiplier tubes and generate voltage pulses. So the software integrates all the information from a particular cell, allowing characterization of an individual cell. You can actually characterize every individual cell using this technique. So this fluorescence activated cell sorting is definitely helping us to understand and characterize each cell. And that's how this fluorescence activated cell sorting works. So I think you understood, guys. It's very crucial to understand all these concepts beforehand, before you start working on this flow cytometry. Now you could see this is a diagram. You could see there are forward scatter detectors, side scatter detectors present along with the fluorescent detectors. In between there is dichromic mirror, short pass filters, long press filters. In this process you could see how side scattering is occurring, how the fluorescence is collection lens is situated in the center, how the flow cell is situated, FSC diodes in the corners, and you could see 488 nanometers blue laser at the left corner. So this is very important to understand. This is how the actual diagram looks, how this actually functions. You could see this FSC actually works, and it's actually similar to the flow cytometry, one of the derivative of flow cytometer. So the similar functionalities and similar process actually occurs in flow cytometer. So you could see beam splitters present at in the center, and you could see how the scattering is occurring. There are side scattering occurring, there is actually forward scattering occurring, and the detectors for it separately. And you could see how important these lasers and mirrors are to actually make the cells flow in that stream, so that we can actually analyze and characterize each cell in this through detection through the computer analysis. So talking about the clinical applications, initially we'll discuss about the DNA content analysis. This is a very commonly used process for DNA content analysis. So investigators are currently using techniques of DNA flow cytometry to measure ploidy status, the DNA content for instance, and proliferative potential in a wide variety of solid tumors. We're talking about the solid state tumors. These measurements have shown relevance for diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment for the patients suffering with cancer. The measurement of cellular DNA content by flow cytometry uses fluorescent dyes, and such as the propydium iodide, very commonly used fluorescent dye that intercalate into DNA helical structure, which is actually being combined with the helical structure of the DNA, and the fluorescent signal is directly proportional to the amount of DNA in the nucleus and can identify the gross gains or losses in the DNA. The abnormal DNA content, also known as DNA content aneuploidy, if there is any abnormality in DNA content, you call it, the abnormality is nothing but the aneuploidy. So whatever abnormality it is, the DNA content is known as the DNA content aneuploidy, can be determined in a tumor cell population using this technique. The DNA aneuploidy generally is associated or linked with the malignancy of the cancer cell. However, certain benign cancer cells may actually appear aneuploid. There is a possibility that the benign cancer cells also may actually may fall into the category of DNA aneuploid or become aneuploid at a particular point of time, but generally they don't actually go through that process. But malignant cells definitely go through this aneuploidy condition. They actually are in the aneuploidy condition. Now talking about the cell cycle analysis. This technique is based on the premise that the cells in G0 or G1 phase of the mammalian cell cycle process a normal possess pair and hence DNA content, whereas cells in G2 and just prior to mitosis we have a G2 phase which contain exactly twice the amount. As DNA is synthesized during the S phase, cells are found with a DNA content ranging between 2n and 4n. So, a histogram plot of DNA content against cell numbers gives the classical DNA profile for proliferating cell cultures. So, you could see as it is saying, the S phase is between, we can actually consider or determine that the ploidy or the content, DNA content would actually be between 2n and 4n. When there is a histogram plot designed to actually estimate the DNA content against the cell numbers, you can actually provide or produce classical DNA profile for proliferating cell culture, how this DNA content is ranging from cell to cell. This is how cell cycle analysis occurs using flow cytometry. You're right. So, how is flow cytometry related to ecology? So, assessment of diversity, abundance, and activity of water column microorganisms are very fundamental to studies in aquatic microbiology, and flow cytometry has its role in it. Currently, most applications of flow cytometry to environmental samples make use of various morphological and physiological characteristics of the cells. So, this actual criteria, the criteria or the factor which is not at all sufficient for identification at the genus or species level. Generally, this criteria is not at all very much effective in identifying at the genus or the species level. Staining with DNA specific fluorochromes offers information about numbers of bacterial cells but not about their identity. You can actually identify or you can actually analyze or you can actually get the info about various number of bacterial cells, but you cannot identify it. You can actually give characterize that particular bacterial cell. That's what people are working out now. So the combined use of dyes that bind preferentially to G to C or A, G, C or AT amino acid base pairs that have been used to distinguish organisms of different GC content. So, guanine and cytosine is one kind of combination, and adenine and thymidine is one kind of combination of base pairs you could actually find. The combined use of dyes that bind preferentially to GC or AT base pairs has been used to distinguish organisms of different GC content. But you cannot actually identify which kind of cell it is. You can actually differentiate it and we actually distinguish based upon the different GC content is available in each cell. That's how the flow cytometry works under the microbiological ecology. So, now coming to a very important topic about the cancer research, how flow cytometry is actually helping, the major functions of flow cytometry in cancer research. So, the prognosis of patients with cancer is very much dependent or determined by a specific histological diagnosis, tumor mass stage, and host performance status. There is actually for every host cell which is actually helping the cancer cells to grow, there is a performance status that also is actually a very important factor in understanding the prognosis of patient who is actually suffering with cancer. It could be any cancer. So, quantitative cytology in the form of flow cytometry has greatly advanced by the objective elucidation of tumor cell heterogeneity by using various probes that discriminate tumor and normal cells and actually can be used in assessment and differentiation and also the proliferation of various tumor cell properties. Both DNA content analysis and FACS can be used in cancer research. We all know that. So, abnormal nuclear DNA content is a conclusive marker of malignancy and is found with increasing frequency in leukemia, around 23% as the survey says, 793 patients; in lymphoma, 53%, around 360 patients; and in myeloma, 76%, around 1777 patients. It's actually wrong, 1777 patients. Sorry, I have to correct it. As well as in solid tumors, it is 75%, 3611 patients, for an overall incidence of 67% in 4941 patients, around 5000 patients. So you could see how this abnormal nuclear DNA content is actually working as a marker in analyzing the frequency of various kind of cancers. So flow cytometric immunophenotyping is actually helping in differentiation of chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which is actually known as CLL, for example, in a shortcut way, from mantle cell lymphoma, it is MCL. So how we can actually differentiate the status of cells, the tumor cells for that instance, in chronic lymphocytic leukemia from the mantle cell lymphoma. So however, overlapping phenotypes may occur, like CD11cc expression has been reported in up to 90% of chronic lymphocytic leukemia cases, but has rarely been reported in mantle cell lymphoma. Whether CD11c can be used to exclude mantle cell lymphoma has not been directly addressed. FCI reports, it's an association which actually works on the cancer cell studies. So FCI reports were actually reviewed for 90 mantle cell lymphoma cases and 355 chronic lymphocytic leukemia cases, and we're actually analyzing the things, and they actually reported using this that we can actually exclude MCL has not been directly addressed. So we can actually say using this survey that we can actually conclude for in that instance that it's very much important that we actually give importance to flow cytometry in differentiating how these cancer cells are actually acting and how can we differentiate between different kind of cancer cells or cancer diseases, cancer types. So flow cytometry has its own role in cancer research, and the functionalities, the major properties, the physical properties which needs to be analyzed of a tumor cell to actually prevent them is very much important to actually use this flow cytometer in this process. That's the reason why it is actually widely used in various cancer research institutes. The cancer hospitals actually widely using this cytometer in analyzing various cancer type cells. So these are the few references what we actually took for understanding flow cytometer in the way which needs to be understood. The various books, various articles, you could go through all these links and actually get to know more about flow cytometer. And yeah, thank you so much for actually watching, and I really enjoyed this session about flow cytometer. I hope you actually understood the actual main intention about why this flow cytometer is very much important in analyzing various kind of cancer cells or tumor cells for that instance. And I hope you all are safe there and you're following all the regulations passed by the Indian government, and we actually hope that this COVID infection goes down very soon. And yeah, be healthy, be safe, be fit. I'll come back. I'll see you guys again in the next video session. Thank you for watching this video. Do subscribe the YouTube channel, and comment below your suggestions what you actually want to know more about, and we will start updating you with the various videos what you actually like. So thank you guys for watching this video. Bye.